Born in 1913 in Algeria, Albert was just 9 years old when his father was drafted into World War I and killed in France. He studied philosophy and literature. In 1938, he became a journalist, and a year later he volunteered for his services in World War II, but was rejected for health reasons. A year later, he moved to Paris and joined the French resistance against the Nazis and became an editor of Combat, an underground newspaper. In 1941, he wrote The Stranger, and a year later he wrote Caligula. This is the play that he is most famous for, and it tells the story of a mad Roman emperor who, devastated by the death of his beloved sister, deals with the discovery of absurdity by creating an absurd world, turning his kingdom upside down in an orgy of sex and violence. He grasps for the impossible, exceeds all limits, and is eventually assassinated. We're going to talk more about absurdity later on in the video. He focused his work on his time period, the 20th century. With the unprecedented horrors of World War II and the images of Auschwitz and Hiroshima, his faith in humanity, optimism, progress, and moral certainty had been wounded. His plays were controversial, but they appealed to a generation that was searching for moral bearings after the upheaval of war. His works deal with problems and are characterized by simple plots, effectiveness of dialogue, and dramatic effects, extreme of racism, political corruption, the exploitation of women, and above all, the hypocrisy of American life. Camus is often linked to existentialism, but it is absolutely necessary that we consider the tenets of existentialism in the context for which they were created. In this case, the context was World War II. In the late 1940s, the new philosophy captured the imagination of Europe and America. Though the roots of existentialism had preceded this period, it became a self-conscious, deliberate philosophy in its own right only after World War II. It is this very difficult and often dismal period of which existentialism is a product. This is a philosophy that has two main ideas, existence and choice. Existence has meaning, and it is up to the individuals to choose what that meaning is. There are 6 major themes, the first of which is existence precedes essence. There is no predetermined essence that defines what it is to be a human. Jean-Paul Sartre said, "You alone are responsible for who you are." The next theme is the impotence of reason. Reason is an imperfect tool because it is subjective. All reason is biased and based on our perspectives. Following that theme is alienation. Man is alone in the world, estranged from himself, society, and God. This theme really shows or highlights that existentialism wasn't a concrete or dogmatic system, but it's more of a mood or an outlook on life. Another theme is anxiety. Man feels threatened by the loss of an ideal world, and that causes him anxiety, knowing that his actions parallel his existence. Number 5 is nothingness. Existentialism is closely linked to nihilism in the belief in overall nothingness. But where nihilism just believes in nothingness, existentialism only has nothingness when man is left to determine meaning for himself. He must face the possibility of nothingness. Lastly, there's freedom. Freedom exists, but it's not absolute. Existentialist freedom doesn't mean that everything is possible. People are free, but there are restrictions on that freedom. An offshoot of existentialism is absurdism. This is a philosophy that states that the efforts of people to find meaning in the world will ultimately fail, and therefore are absurd. The word absurd in this context doesn't mean logically impossible, but rather humanly impossible, highlighting that there's only so far that we can go as humans. The absurd in this case has to do with the human condition, with the confrontation between man's desire for significance and meaning and existence and the silent, cold universe. It's us against the world. There are specific human experiences that evoke notions of absurdity, which leaves man with 3 choices: a leap of faith, suicide, acceptance. We can either take a leap of faith, and where one believes that there is more than the rational life, suicide, which he views as the only way out of absurdity, and acceptance, where you embrace the absurd condition as it is. According to Camus, there are a few causes of absurdity. The first is a quotidian lifestyle, which is the mechanical nature of many individuals' lives, the deadening routine that marks them. Time causes absurdity. The sense of time is destructive. And dereliction. A sense of dereliction or the intentional abandonment in an alien world. which people feel in varying degrees, where they feel isolated and abandoned. And that isolation is the last cause, the alienation, an acute sense of our fundamental isolation from other human beings. We need those human connections, or else that feeling of alienation will cause absurdity.